Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. Before I get to our case today, quick reminder, don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you are watching, so you don't miss any of our lives. Today's case is about a client who is a native and citizen of Nigeria. She married her LPR or lawful permanent resident spouse back in 2017. In 2019, she got her conditional green card based on the marriage, or her 2-year green card. And that was set to expire in September of 2021. Unfortunately, since that time, they started having marriage problems. Specifically, my client, she wanted to have a baby with her husband, and they tried to conceive and failed, so they went to go get fertility treatments. And they actually tried on 3 separate occasions to do IVF, which is fertility treatment, and unfortunately she was unable to get pregnant. And after the 3rd time, each time, insurance covers some of it, but it's still expensive out of pocket even when insurance does cover it. So after the 3rd time that she was unable to get pregnant, her husband, who's originally from Nigeria as well, went back home to visit family. And when he came back, it was like he was a different person. And he was very distant from her. And then shortly after returning to the US, he decided to go visit home again. And this is when my client started to realize that something was a little fishy, since when he would go back to Nigeria, he wouldn't pick up her calls. There was just no contact whatsoever. And then when he came back, she learned that he actually got another woman pregnant. And then at that point, he said to her, "I can't be in this relationship anymore. I need to get a divorce." And, the client, she was really heartbroken. She really loved him and really wanted to have a baby with him. And in some cultures, this happens when women can't get pregnant. We see it a lot with our clients from Nigeria, other countries too, depending on your culture and what your belief system are. But I know in Nigeria, when women can't get pregnant, a lot of times they do have some issues with their family. And in this case, the husband essentially kicked her out and then filed for divorce. So it was in 2020, actually December 2020, earlier in 2020, she was served with divorce papers. In December 2020, the divorce was final. Now, her conditional green card expired in September of 2021. And anyone who is watching out there, if you know much about how these conditional green cards work, you get the 2-year green card, and within 90 days of that 2 years expiring, you need to file the I-751 application to get your 10-year green card. They call it a petition to remove conditions on residency. And you become a full permanent resident once that's approved. Now, if your relationship breaks down, there are a few ways you can go about it. And one way is, if you did enter the marriage in good faith, but it ended through divorce, you can get your 10-year green card that way. Now, 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1, you still have to prove you enter the marriage in good faith. And number 2, you need the divorce to be final. And depending on where you live, it will take a very varying amount of time to get divorced. In New York right now, I've had divorce take 1.5 years because of COVID. Everything's all backed up. Some places, in Connecticut, I think we've had one take 3 months, but you never know how long it's going to take. An uncontested divorce, and this, when I say 1.5 years, I'm talking an uncontested divorce, not even, that's where, both parties say, okay, we want to get divorced. We have no kids, we have no assets, or if we have kids, everything's settled, and that can still take 1.5 years. So that's important to keep in mind when you're filing. If you have a problem in your relationship and you decide to get divorced, you want to get that filing done earlier, because when that time comes, you can file the I-751 with the divorce waiver if your divorce isn't complete, but at some point USCIS will send you a request for evidence for that final divorce. And if you don't have it, that within the time period to respond to the request for evidence, your petition is going to get denied. So you have to be really aware of the timing when it comes to this. In this case, she didn't even, her divorce was already done by the time she came to us. So the evidence we used to show that they entered the marriage in good faith was, well, we had the divorce, which to show she was fully divorced. Then we had her write an affidavit explaining basically what I just explained, the whole situation about why the marriage didn't work out. And, this is one of those marriages where, it's unfortunate it didn't work out. It's unfortunate her husband couldn't, look into adopting with her or something if they wanted to have children together. But these things happen. Marriages don't always work out, even when you have the best intentions, and that is okay. We just have to be able to show it. So she explained it. And then we submitted the fertility documents and the medical records showing that they kept trying, and, to back up and corroborate her affidavit about why the marriage didn't work out. And then we had a joint checking account. And this is an interesting one because if you watch my videos a lot, when I talk about marriage evidence, I talk about joint checking accounts a lot, and how if you don't use the joint checking account, it's not going to do much for you. Or if you don't have a lot of activity, it won't do much for you. Now, in this case, each month they actually really only had one thing on there, and it was to pay their joint Con Ed bill. So it wasn't an ideal use of the checking account. I would say you want to put more of those joint bills in there, or just use it. I mean, it doesn't have to be on joint expenses. It helps if it is, but we did submit, normally I submit like every few months, but we submitted every single month to show that, look, they're paying for their joint account to their joint Con Ed bill. And this is also a good option if sometimes people have trouble getting a second name on certain bills. I know Con Ed, I've had clients have varying success, same with cell phones. So this is another option. If you can't get your spouse on there, you guys have your joint checking account, pay it from the joint checking account. We had a couple of years of joint taxes, joint health insurance. We also had a letter from their pastor in support of their good faith marriage. And this wasn't just a pastor at the church they went to. The client actually explained in the affidavit that they went to marriage counseling. She sought the help of the community at her church when she was going through a hard time. She sought her pastor's help. So he really knew a lot about the marriage. And, affidavits have varying levels of help when it comes to these things. But when you're dealing with your pastors do hold a little more weight than a random friend or family member, because a pastor is not going to write something that's not true. And not only that, this wasn't just any pastor. This was someone who was actively involved with helping her and her husband through her marriage. So that was a really helpful letter. We had a joint cell phone bill. And again, this was one where the actual bill did not have both names. It was under a family plan, and we showed their both phone numbers were being paid for it. And then, of course, we had some photographs of the couple, which, is one of my I always talk about photos, my least favorite piece of evidence, just because it doesn't hold as much weight, but we always submit a few, of course, to show. So there wasn't a huge amount of evidence. This one actually was pretty quick for an I-751 to get approved. But I think it was really clear that in this case, the marriage fell apart because she couldn't get pregnant. And, that it's sad it happened that way. But fortunately for her, it doesn't ruin her American dream. She now has her 10-year green card. Because her husband is not a U.S. citizen, she cannot apply. She's not eligible yet to apply for her citizenship. She has to wait for the 5 years instead of the 3 years. But she won't have to worry about staying married or anything like that. And I have one more thing to say about it. Oh, no, I forgot. I'm still having some brain fog going on, but basically, I think the main thing to take away from here is that, every marriage is different. People get together, break up for different reasons. As long as your primary reason is not to get a green card and you want to spend your life with this person, then it's fine. And if you end up getting divorced, you end up getting divorced. Oh, the last thing I was going to say is that we ended up filing for her I-751 not within the 3-month period. We filed it in May of 2021. And I've talked about this in other cases before too. You're required to file it in that 3-month period before the 2 years expires, with one exception. If your marriage breaks up, you're really supposed to file it as soon as you can, once you know that your marriage is breaking up, whether you're getting divorced or you're unfortunately a victim of abuse. You could file it. I've filed it. The earliest I've ever filed one of these was a month or two after someone got their conditional green card, because their spouse became abusive and there was just no question. So you don't have to wait, but you do want to have that divorce finalized if that's the route that you are going to go. So that is all today for notable approvals. Keep your eye out. Make sure you let Gus follow us on Facebook if you found this on and Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're watching. If you found this video to be helpful, please hit that share button and make sure you keep your eye out. I will be hopefully this week doing a What You Really Want to Know episode about the material support to terrorism bar and asylum, which is actually very interesting. And anyone watching or out there who's applied for asylum or knows someone who has, especially political asylum, this is something you're going to want to tune into. You're going to be surprised about the way the law views being in a rival political party sometimes. So I have a case that I've been preparing for, and I actually was a little shocked when I learned a little bit more about the material support bar, because it's not something that comes up too much. But that is all for now. Thank you for watching. And I, of course, forgot to mention that our contact information is rolling across the bottom of the screen on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, if you go to our bio page, you can find all our contact information there. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.